Hello everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. I am so excited for today's stunning and delicious holiday cake recipe, and I'll be making my chocolate peppermint holiday cake with peppermint buttercream and chocolate ganache. This stunning cake is going to be the centerpiece of any holiday celebration. We're going to start by making rich, luscious, chocolatey cake layers dotted with some peppermint chocolate chips. We're going to make a peppermint buttercream with cream cheese and then get the cake assembled and garnish it with some chocolate ganache. This cake is so incredibly delicious, and that combination of chocolate and peppermint just screams Christmas. For the full list of ingredients and the written instructions, don't forget to head on down into that video description box and follow the link over to my website. I also have this recipe with metric measurements. Meanwhile, let's get started. I'm preheating my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to make sure that oven is preheated for a good 15 to 20 minutes before you put the cake layers in. Next, I'm going to take 1 cup of unsalted butter over to the microwave, melt this, and then let it cool for just a few minutes. You can also use 1 cup of cooking oil for this recipe. We'll start with 1 cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you could just add a tablespoon of lemon juice to a cup of whole milk. Add in 1 cup of white granulated sugar. We'll need 4 large eggs, and I recommend having these at room temperature. This will allow the cake layers to bake more evenly. Add in the eggs, along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And I'm going to be adding about 1/3 of a teaspoon of peppermint oil. This stuff is super strong, so you want to make sure that you don't add too much of it. You can even lower this down to 1/4 of a teaspoon just to make sure that it's not overwhelming. But if you're using a peppermint extract, you want to add about a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. Pour in the cooled melted butter. And then use the mixer to blend this all together for a few minutes until the eggs are well beaten. I have 1 tablespoon of instant coffee. I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of water. Give that a mix until it's completely dissolved. And then pour that into the cake batter. And I always add coffee to my chocolate cakes, not for the coffee flavor, but to really help intensify the chocolate flavor. It's a really great addition. Next up, we're going to add in 1/2 cup of melted semi-sweet chocolate chips, and these are going to make the chocolate cake really moist. And I love using this combination of both chocolate and cocoa powder to create a really rich and intense chocolate flavored cake. Give this a quick mix. For my dry ingredients, I have 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 3/4 cups of dark cocoa powder. Mix this all together. I like to use a fine mesh strainer like this one to sift the dry ingredients into the cake batter. And you always want to do this to make sure that you don't end up with any clumps of cocoa powder or baking powder. All right, and then grab your mixer and give this a mix just until the dry ingredients are combined. You have a really nice and smooth cake batter. And for my final ingredient, 1 cup of peppermint chocolate chips. And this is the brand that I'm using today. I love this chocolate brand. Grab a spatula and fold those in. For baking my cake layers, I'm going to be using 3 8-inch cake pans. I've lined the bottom with some parchment paper. You can also make this recipe with 2 8-inch cake pans. You're just going to have to increase the baking time by about 4 to 5 minutes, and you can use this with 2 9-inch cake pans. And I like to use a little handy digital scale to weigh out my cake batter so that each cake layer is nice and even. And I'm getting about 500 grams of cake batter per pan. And then use a spoon or an offset spatula and spread the cake batter evenly to the edges. And these cake layers are ready for the oven. They're going to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 26 minutes or until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. You can also use a digital thermometer, insert it into the center, and it should read at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So once these are done baking, I'm just going to take them out of the oven, cool them in the pans for about 5 minutes, and then place them onto a wire rack to cool completely. You want to make sure these cake layers are completely cooled before you start frosting them. You can even place them into the refrigerator so that they cool down completely. All right, into the oven. Once my cake layers have cooled completely, I'm going to grab a long serrated knife. We're going to gently trim off the top so our cake layers are nice and even. You just want to hold your knife as flat as possible. With my cake layers cooled and leveled, I'm going to start on my mint buttercream. I'm going to be using 2 cups of unsalted butter and 8 ounces or 1 cup of softened cream cheese. You want to make sure that the butter and the cream cheese aren't too soft. So if you touch if you kind of squeeze the stick of butter, it should give in. So it should be soft, but it shouldn't be melted. So if your buttercream is ever too soft and it's not fluffy, it's more greasy, just place it into the refrigerator and then chill it for half an hour to an hour, and then mix it again, and you're going to get that light and fluffy buttercream that you're going for. Now drop it into my mixer bowl, and I have the flat beater attached here today. And we're going to mix the butter and the cream cheese together for a good 8 to 10 minutes. You want it to be really light and fluffy, really well beaten, and like almost white in color, so really, really fluffy texture. Add in our cream cheese. And we'll start off on a slow speed first. Once my butter and cream cheese are combined, I like to switch over to a whisk attachment. This will help get the butter and the cream cheese mixture really light and fluffy. And don't forget to scrape down the sides of your mixing bowl every so often to make sure that everything gets incorporated. Next, we're going to need 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And just a few drops, less than 1/4 teaspoon of the peppermint oil. This stuff is super strong, so don't add too much. Remember, you can always add more at the end. And I always like to add a few pinches of salt into my frostings. It really gives it something special, helps balance out the sweetness. And we can start adding in our confectioner sugar. I'm going to add about 3 cups. You can add 3 to 4 cups depending on how sweet you want the frosting to be. I'm going to start this out on a slow speed first and then turn it up to medium high and whisk for about 3 to 5 minutes until you have a really fluffy buttercream. And the last thing I'm going to do is add in a few drops of gel food coloring. I'm going to add just a few drops at a time and then give it a mix and adjust the color as needed. And I always give my frosting one more stir with my spatula to make sure that everything is really well incorporated. Oh, check this out. This is such a creamy and dreamy peppermint frosting, and it tastes incredible. I love the balance. You add just a little bit of the peppermint, lots of vanilla. It gives you that incredible minty flavor. All right, we are ready to put this together. And I broke a little edge of the cake off accidentally when I was removing it from the pan. And this is such an easy fix. You just want to apply a little bit of frosting, kind of glue that piece right back in, and nobody's ever gonna know. All right, let's add some frosting, and between the cake layers, use a spatula to spread that evenly to the edges. Add on our second cake layer. And if you wanted to add even more chocolate flavor to this cake, you could spread a little bit of chocolate ganache onto each cake layer before you add the buttercream, or you can even soak the cake layers with a little bit of chocolate liqueur. I'm just going to grab some of my buttercream and I'm going to apply a thin layer of the frosting all the way around the cake on the sides and the top. I'm going to place it into the fridge, let it chill for a good 20-30 minutes, and then we'll apply the final coat of frosting on the outside and garnish the cake. Oops. And after applying my final layer of buttercream, I placed the cake back into the fridge to chill and made a batch of my chocolate ganache. So 1 cup of chocolate melts plus 1/3 cup of heavy cream. And I let this chill as well. So pipe little drops going down. Then we could take the rest of the frosting, and I'm using a Teco tip number 847. I'm going to pipe little dollops onto the cake. I'm going to add some Andes mint chocolates into my little dollops of cream. I get asked this question every single time I use my turntable. How do I transfer the cake from the turntable onto a cake stand? For this step, you're going to need either 2 flat spatulas or 2 long knives. And let the chocolate ganache set up a little bit, and then insert the spatula. You want to go all the way around, release the cake from the cake stand. Slide the other knife or spatula on the other side. You want to do this quickly, just lift and transfer. Perfect. This looks so pretty. I love how this cake turned out. Let's connect to it and see what it looks like on the inside. Check out this incredible cake. Doesn't that look amazing? You have those rich chocolate cake layers, the buttercream, the chocolate ganache. It's gonna be incredible. If you want extra chocolate flavor, pour some of that chocolate ganache on top of each cake slice. And that's it for my chocolate peppermint cake. This is definitely going to be the centerpiece of any Christmas party. Don't forget to head on down and into the description box and over to my website for the full list of ingredients, including the metric measurements and the written instructions. Meanwhile, let's dig in and give this a try. This looks incredible with the chocolate ganache, the buttercream. I love the flavor of this buttercream. Super creamy too. This cake is absolutely incredible. The chocolate cake layers are so moist and delicate, super rich and chocolatey, and then combine it with that soft peppermint buttercream. This tastes like a peppermint hot chocolate, but in cake form. So incredibly delicious. Now, if only we could eat everything we wanted and never get fat, I would totally have like 3 slices of this cake. It's so good. If you're hosting a Christmas or holiday party this season, make sure this chocolate peppermint cake is on the menu. It is an absolute stunner, and the flavors are just out of this world amazing. So rich, chocolatey, and festive. Thank you guys so much for watching my latest episode. Don't forget to head on down into that comment section. I love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you next time with a new recipe.